Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. We are going to talk about real estate investing in Denver with the man, the myth, the legend, the expert, Mr. Shaun Martin. He is here to talk about how to jumpstart your career as a cash home buyer in Denver, Colorado's high-priced housing market. So, Shaun, glad to be speaking with you.
Robert, thanks for that amazing introduction. I normally sell myself a little shorter than that, but yeah, I like to think I know a few things about real estate.
And
Glad to
that's
be
okay.
here.
Yeah, and I'm glad to have you. And that's okay because it's like if you yourself are bragging about yourself, no one wants to hear that. But if I'm here saying, hey, this guy, Shaun, is the person you want to speak to when you're looking into jumping into the real estate market in Denver, Colorado, or even just upping your game or kind of making it run on a smoother machine. And so what do you have to say about this right off the bat? What's your current focus and passion as far as real estate?
A little bit of everything, but I mean, a pure focus would be a combination of cash buying through SEO in the Denver housing market. So that is, yeah, SEO leads to great deals. Cash is king, of course. It still is, despite what people say. So paying for cash leads to even greater deals. And then Denver, I mean, I live nearby, so Denver is a great place for me to be investing. Kind of what do you call it? Oh, a gold standard, a rule of real estate investing that I actually ignored for a while. Big mistake. We can talk about that if you want, but try and invest close to where you live. Yeah. So
Okay, and those great pieces of advice. So I'm kind of hearing a few differentiators, right? You're saying that you are big on the cash buying and that you're big
mhm.
on where you live, but it was specifically, we can kind of live anywhere we want, more or less. And so you are focused on the kind of Denver, Colorado area. And then he also mentioned how you like to use SEO, search engine optimization, in order to get traffic. And so why these things? Why these decisions? With all the things that could be done with real estate and all the ways that we could approach finding the buyers, why cash buying and why SEO?
Cash buying gives you access to sellers that are motivated for a number of different reasons. Typically, or an example being someone that wants to get rid of a property. Maybe they inherited it. They may live out of state and inherited it. They may not have seen it in 30 years and they just want to get rid of it. They don't want to list it. They don't want to go through fixing it, dealing with realtors and that. So if you can provide a solution, aka they call you and you just say, yep, here's some money, take it or leave it, cash in your bank, super convenient. People will pay for that convenience. I mean, honestly, it's not like or totally dissimilar to selling a used car. You could sell it by yourself for a lot more, but so often people will take a used car to a dealer and get half the money that they could if they sold it on like Craigslist or whatever, privately. And so that convenience is the same kind of thing. So that's why I like to do cash. Do you want me to talk about why SEO a little bit? I think you
Yes,
mentioned that.
please. That'd be great.
Okay. So yeah, so SEO, I mean, it's a totally different topic, I guess, to real estate, but integrating the two. I love it. I mean, from the youngest age, this is why I love it. I love computer games, and the ones that you kind of like SimCity, you build a city, or one about trains or this, and you build out stuff. SEO is like the ultimate computer game, but with crappy graphics. It's just like you're just staring at a screen and looking at words all the time, basically. But using SEO, it's about ranking high on search engines. And if you rank high on a search engine, then people can find you. Specifically, I try and rank for things like, can I sell my inherited house fast? Or how do I sell my house without a realtor in Denver? So if someone types those questions, I try to produce useful information, how to step-by-step guides, things like that. And of course, I have my phone number on there. So the person can read good information, they know their options, and see me as an option if they want to sell it for cash. So yeah, SEO goes back to cash. Yeah.
Wonderful. And there are some really good insights there about SEO that you mentioned, because when you mention SEO to someone who's maybe not an internet marketer or not big on the whole internet thing, they might think that, oh, I want to rank for real estate Denver. And people like you and I know that it's more important to rank on the actual phrases that someone will search. And you say that and it makes total sense. And then you also mentioned there that when they search these things, they find these sort of how-to step-by-step guides because maybe they might not even be quite at that point yet to make that phone call, right? And so they say, okay, well, this guy, he knows what he's talking about. He's showing some of this knowledge, and they might kind of save the document or like bookmark or save a PDF or just kind of take note of this step-by-step training. And it always helps to have like an educated buyer. And then I imagine, and you tell me about this, but imagine that someone might see these steps and say, okay, like I could do this, right? And it all makes perfect sense. And there's some details to be filled in, but they say, I could go through these steps, and maybe they start, but then they say, I'm on step 2 or 3. I'm getting so overwhelmed. I just need to call Shaun and just have him do it for me. And then but I can already call Shaun kind of being reassured and knowing that he's the guy for me. So is that on the right track as far as like, there's no danger in giving away the information because the right buyer who's looking for convenience, as you say, they'll see the information and say, okay, you know what? I'll rather have Shaun do it.
I agree with absolutely everything you said. Lot to unpack there, but I've written down a couple things just to try and make sure I hit on those. But in regards to selling the secret sauce, or everyone thinks they have the secret sauce, but when it comes to real estate, man, I mean, fuck. Everything's been done for the most part. Certainly, I'm not reinventing the wheel. There is always innovation going on, and the next best thing. But like an example of that is this BRRRR strategy, BRRRR, which people still act like it's this new thing. Buy, rehab. It's all the R's.
Like
Buy, rehab,
reinvest.
yeah, reinvest. Before BRRRR came out, I'm not that. I've been in it 20 years. I was doing exactly. I'd buy a house, I'd make it nicer, I'd refinance it, then I'd reinvest. But they just came up with a new term, and people have been doing that for 100 years. So my point being, like, there is no secret sauce on my end, and so I'm just about giving the best information to a person so that they can come up or choose the best solution for them. And that also speaks to there's so much opportunity out there in real estate. There's no point in trying to like cheat someone out of a property or something like that, which, yeah, deals have got to be good for both sides. It's got to be win-win. And I'm not yeah, there's just too many opportunities. Giving people the best information so that they can come up with the best choice. And then I do think that then lends back to, if somebody decides to go a different route, if I have given them the best information, I was transparent with them about the best way to sell for them, if it does get too hard, then they will remember me. And if they don't, they'll type maybe something like cash buyer in Denver, Shaun Martin, and that's where SEO comes in again. Like, they'll be able to find me again pretty easy. So it all kind of comes together for that reason.
I love that. They call that an abundance mindset, right? Is you put it out there and you say, the right people will find you, and the right people will be motivated to then further work with you. And so it's just a matter of putting yourself out there and doing enough activity to get this attention. And that seems a very kind of modern way of marketing versus the old way of like, running the newspaper ad or making the cold calls. You're just like, I'm putting it out there and I'm doing a lot of marketing, and like just the right person will find me and kind of take those different sort of steps in the funnel. And so since your kind of flavor here is the cash buying, and as you mentioned, you've been doing this 20 years. You've been doing this since 2008 in Denver, Tampa, Indianapolis. And you analyze all these deals. But then, so if someone says, okay, cash buying, that they might be worried about like the cash aspect of it, right? If someone's like looking into your process and they say, well, how do I like have the right cash ready for when the opportunity comes along? Like, what do you say to that?
So you're talking about potentially a new investor or a new real estate investor looking to get into the game?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I know people that jump straight into cash buying, but they're not using their own money, and that's fine. You know, it's a lack of transparency, I guess, when you're talking to a seller if you've got other people involved. How I got into it, pretty long game. I started out buying homes during the Great Recession, actually, 2008. Timing was great. I mean, a lot of hard work, but I was lucky on timing. And then over the years, just kept buying and have built up a lot of equity in properties. And that has then allowed me, you know, those rentals to build up a nest egg of cash, which then I can use to buy homes for cash. Now that was a 5-10 year process. So if you just start that process, I mean, if you want to jump in straight as a cash buyer, one good way to do it would be the partnership. Find someone like me, maybe help me find deals, and I can kind of help you be that cash buyer and accelerate into that. I mean, you've got to build up a lot of trust with some, you know, like let's call it a seasoned investor. That kind of sounds a little bit making myself big, but otherwise, like one thing, oh, there's something called house hacking. Can I talk about that?
Let's
Like
do that. Yes.
particularly, so a way to start to get into property ownership, because I hear a lot of people saying everything's too expensive, is something called house hacking. It's become increasingly popular. Basically, you just buy a house, got lots of bedrooms, you rent out all of the bedrooms except one, and that then pays for the mortgage plus cash flows. So, I mean, I know people that have bought homes in Denver, even, which is considered super expensive. They've bought their first home, regular mortgage, they're paying the mortgage, and they're banking $2,000 cash money in their account a month. So there are ways to get into it, for sure. You know, and yeah.
I love that. Yeah, there's all sorts of ways to think outside the box, right? Where there's like the old fashioned way of like I need to save money or get a bank loan, but you say, you know, you can partner with an investor, you can do this house hacking and rent out the house except for the one room where you live, and it's just quite a time to be alive, right? Where we're simultaneously sure we are maybe overloaded, overwhelmed with all the choices out there. But if we can kind of focus and choose a path for ourselves, then all the information there is available to us as long as we maybe have the confidence and the dedication just to kind of charge forward and do sorts of things. And so, you know, since we're on a podcast, it's always fun to get to know you and your personality and jump into some stories. And so, have you ever lost money on a deal? And do you feel like talking about that?
Shit, yeah, sure. I mean, I've been in real estate for 20 years. So I think if you talk to anybody that's been in it for a while, if they tell you they've won every time, they're lying. I mean, I'm thinking back. So actually, the biggest one that comes to mind was a fix and flip we did. It was in Denver. Now, let me say, fix and flipping is the hardest strategy to make money in real estate. I mean, you've got to find a great deal, then you got to buy it, like close on it. You've got to rehab it, so you're dealing with like GCs or builders, plumbers, electricians, the city, permitting, this, that, and the next thing. So if you're doing it legitimately, like it's just so many moving pieces involved. Don't jump right into fix and flips if you ask me, but everyone seems to want to. New investors, they're like, oh, I'll just do a couple fix and flips and then I'll make some cash and then become a cash buyer or a landlord or something. It's like, ugh. Anywho, so we were talking about lost money. Okay, so fix and flip. The worst one, and it's actually truly one that I've lost on, and that's it. And I lost 30K. I lost a lot of sleep. Biggest mistakes were I paid too much when I purchased it. I overinvested in it. Like made it way too nice for the neighborhood. But and then because we had to sell it for lots, it sat on the market for like 12 months. And this is like 2014, 15, everything was selling like hotcakes still. I mean, it's what, 224 now. I mean, it was selling like hotcakes even a year ago, but it was selling like hotcakes back then, and it just didn't. I lost a lot of sleep over that for sure. Again, lessons learned, don't pay too much. That's when you make the money. It really is. So
And that's interesting to think about. Of just there are ways to go. There's ways to go wrong with anything, but even ways that you don't anticipate, right? Even like you mentioned there, like you made the house too nice for the neighborhood, right? And like because you think like,
mm,
okay, maybe I'll overspend on something and then I'll like worry about making my money back. But that's interesting in itself to think about, that you might buy a kind of like a fixer upper in a not a great neighborhood and make it too nice, and then it will just be too different and not even sell. So that really, for me, emphasizes why we can't go it alone, and why doing the self-study is a great place to start. And watching YouTubes or podcasts such as this one, it's good to get
mm,
ideas, but then there's like a Swiss cheese worth of gaps in your knowledge where you might make a terrible mistake, and because it's real estate and there's money and materials and other people on the line, that you might end up down a path and really years later be on a podcast and say, hey, don't make the same mistake that I did. And so it makes a lot of sense why someone should reach out to you and have one of these chats with you, and kind of talk through some of these things. And so one thing I want to make sure that we cover is, you mentioned a little bit about like you're good at like kind of seeing if a good deal works or not. So like how does that
mhm.
work? Is it like you've seen enough properties? Is it like a math equation? How do you know if a deal is good or not for what you're talking about?
Yeah, if a deal's good enough, I mean, 20 years I've processed tons, thousands of deals, I would imagine, looked at thousands of houses. There's all sorts of equations, some basic ones that you'll find real quick. For fix and flip, what is the ARV, or the ARV, which is after it's fixed up, after repair value, times 70%, basically. So if it's worth 100,000 after it's all nice, then you shouldn't pay more than, minus repairs. So if the repairs are 10, take that off and then times it by 70%. So you're paying about 65 grand. So there's kind of, and I call those back of the napkin ones. Um, as you develop your career, you'll start to niche focus on specific areas and have a much better understanding of the costs of rehab. That's probably a big where people go wrong a lot, to the point that, yeah, now it's, if someone calls me, if it's anywhere in Colorado, almost anywhere in the country actually now, there's multipliers. Like Indianapolis costs a little bit less to rehab than Denver, just because of the labor price. So I mean, it's really easy actually just to work out what something's going to cost, how much money you can make on it. Um, there's no To me, there's no quick way to learn all that. Unfortunately, you got to get in, you got to get your hands dirty, you got to start making deals, you got to start doing the rehabs, or working with someone that does. Yeah, there's a lot of information there. Actually, I'll tell you what, like if I could go back and do it again, I would probably be a builder or a plumber or an electrician, because then you'd probably have a much better idea. I'm a physical therapist way back when. I had no idea about real estate. My parents didn't teach me anything about money, finances. I'm still terrible with money. But yeah, so there's lots of different ways to work out a deal. I guess that's the price. And yeah, lots of information online. If you Google how to evaluate a deal, you'll start to see those equations.
And that's just kind of circling back to like our repeats sort of lesson here in our conversation, is that there can be all this information out there, but you can sometimes be more confused than when you started or go down the wrong path. And it just seems like we keep getting back to this point of how important it is to be sociable and to partner up with someone who has these many years of life skills, who's just been in the trenches, so to speak, and has kind of seen all these things and has thought of some of these hidden costs, thought of like the multipliers or the ways that something can go wrong, and there's like no replacement for that, right? You can read all kinds of books on it, but unless you've been actually doing the deals and in it for years, then you'll make mistakes for sure. And the way to maybe sidestep or shortcut those mistakes is by partnering with someone with yourself, or just kind of networking and connecting. And so I know that you are a big believer in networking, and that you say that a lot of people in real estate, they don't network enough. So can you kind of tell us about that and set us on the right track?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on me not reinventing anything yet. I've been terrible at networking myself. Simply networking, in case someone doesn't understand, going out and meeting people. In real estate, it's real easy. There's all sorts of real estate meetings in every city, name, place. You could do it online, you can do it in person. And every time I've been to one of those, I always meet someone that I connect with, that shares information with me, or I can share information with them, and we just add value to each other. Often it will be these conversations, these meetings out, well, this is a mistake I made, or this is a question I have, and another person, they've possibly, hopefully they haven't made the mistake, but most likely someone has made that mistake already, and they can guide you in the right direction. I would be light years ahead of where I am now if I had actually spent time weekly planning to meet more people, specifically in the niches that I'm trying to be in. Like as a landlord, for example, people have been landlording since the beginning of time, man. Like, why am I trying to work it out on my own? It's simple. So if that would be a big piece of advice for someone starting out, is as much as you can, reach out to other people. Don't reach out to them blindly, though. I mean, it might sound a little bit rude, but if someone calls me up and says, hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee and we'll sit down for 2 hours and I can pick your brain, $3 for a cup of coffee for 2 hours of my time. I'm not trying to be rude, but and I got to drive somewhere to meet you. That's actually pretty rough. So maybe some phone calls, ask me, how can I help you? Is there something I can do? And just make the process a little more organic. Maybe oh shit, man, like, yeah, you could email these 3 or 4 people and talk to them on the phone. They're deals that I got possibly lined up. Again, talking to abundance, and am I afraid to give people those opportunities? No, because if you're starting out, they probably couldn't purchase the property anyway. On top of that, if they're an idiot, they might try and steal the deal, but then they're cut off. Like, and I've got plenty of deals like that. I'd risk that. It's not yeah, that would be pretty short-sighted on their side, but yeah,
It would be,
stuff
but
happens.
it happens. And so what I'm getting from your answer here is that it's like you want like an equal exchange of value. Like say
Yeah.
I'm contacting you, Shaun. I want an equal exchange of value, or even better, I want to give you more value than you give me. So like even like that math problem, like, well, a $3 a cup of coffee for 2 hours of your time, that tells me that I'm only giving you $1.50 per hour. But on the other hand, if we're both at a
Not minimum
networking,
wage.
yeah, I mean, way less than minimum wage. But if we're at a networking event and I'm just talking to you for a few minutes and we get a contact,
Oh
or
yeah.
if you kind of pass me along to your network and that leads to a deal, that benefits you because you're a connector, you're hooking people up. And so that's a way better exchange of value. And so the thing with the networking, and maybe you can tell me about this, is I had to force myself early on to do it, right? I had to, like you said, just
Mm.
every week, just do something. Like there's all these Zoom meetings now, or there's the in-person, and I had to tell myself, like, I might not get anything out of this, or I might just get some contacts, but this is like an essential ingredient, right? It's like if you make the cake without the eggs, then it's not going to do the whole thing. So even though it seems kind of like maybe sometimes useless or counterintuitive, or your social anxiety tries to talk you out of it, you just have to network. So do you have any kind of like motivating advice just for these future, real estate investors to just get out there and do it? Like how do you encourage us to just go and do it even though it doesn't make sense in the present?
Yeah, I mean, step by step. Firstly, just get on Google, like, to find meetups, real estate meetups near me, real estate investment meetings near me. Then how to motivate to do it. I mean, there's only so much somebody can do for somebody else to motivate them. Like, totally like healthcare and things like that, the individual has to make that decision themselves. What I could tell or can say, if you're looking into real estate, real estate is a fantastic vehicle to retire. You know, you may not be flying a private jet, but I can tell you, like, if I ever want to go on vacation, I can. If I ever need to buy a new car, I can, at this point. So there's so many ways to win with real estate. So if that's not motivating, you know, financial freedom, if that's not motivating enough, you know, or if you are already going or need a little more push to get to a meetup, it will absolutely, if you're consistent, speed up the process of getting to that financial freedom or being able to see where to go. And plus, it's just fun. They normally, so often in Colorado anyway, we got heaps of breweries. It's always at a brewery. You always get to have a nice beer, you know, lots of different beers. IPA, that's where I'm at. But yeah. So it's, yeah, and it is just fun. It's nice to get out, especially after COVID. You know, no one could go anywhere, do anything. Heck, if you're single, you might meet a gal. I'm not, happily married for 17 years now. Wow.
Wow.
Heck, time flies when you're married.
Yeah. So and that's great. Yeah, you might meet your future spouse, you might meet your next best friend. And so what I'm getting from your
Yeah.
answer here is that, being an adult is all about delayed gratification, right? And so doing some things that, I mean, sometimes the steel making, it can be a little pain in the rear, but and when you get past the finish line, you close these deals, you help people out, you make some money, you build your nest egg, you have more freedom in the future in exchange for doing the work in the now. And then also, you mentioned about this kind of having fun. And if real estate is not fun for you, or if you're negative instead of positive, you need to get a better group of people, right? You need to stop talking so much to your friends from high school or from middle school and talk to these other realtors who are making some deals. And just being around all of this excitement and enthusiasm will make you yourself excited about real estate and investing and these future opportunities that are available. Because as you're saying here, Shaun, is that there's so many, there's so much happening all around you every day that you just need to pick up some of these deals. And so how do people do this? Like, as far as the people that are watching or listening to this podcast, like, what's the ideal kind of person that you want to reach out to you, and why would they be contacting you?
You know, the best deal or the best deals I ever get, I mentioned inherited property earlier. So I do try to rank highly for various inherited property searches. And the reason being is a lot of times, especially if the person is calling, they're not interested in the property. And so there's not a connection to the property. So they don't want to have anything to do with the property. And a lot of times that's because it might be run down or it's out of state. Maybe they're estranged from their parents or whoever gifted it to them. And so that kind of person, they're willing to let it go quickly, simply, and for a fair price. Compare that to, say, somebody that has renovated their home and it hasn't sold for 3 months, because we get those people calling all the time too. And on the MLS, it's listed for $500,000. They call me up and say, "Oh, I'll sell it to you for 480 cash." And the truth is, they're getting more if they sold it to me for 480 than they would if they sold it on the MLS minus realtor fees. So, that's not a deal for me. Hence, finding people that are motivated. For me, someone that's inherited a property has been the best deals, but there's other pain points and reasons for people to be motivated, and often it does get into sad places. Divorce is one, that's sad, and then one that I'm happy to deal with, but it's a really precious situation, is a foreclosure. Someone's losing their home. It's terrible. I actually never want that to happen. But I mean, how I can help is, if they are going to lose it, it's being auctioned tomorrow. Better sell it for cash than lose all your equity. Again, those conversations. I mean, those people are terribly stressed. It's still a solution. But all the way the other end, people that sell those inherited properties, they're like, oh my gosh, thank you, Shaun. I've got hundreds of thousands of dollars cash now because of you. I didn't have to do anything. And I'm like, great, cool. I got a really cool project too. Plus, if they haven't been in there, I tell you what, there's some fun stuff. Like you go into those properties, and more often than not, they're just full of, I guess you call it junk. Most of it goes in the dumpster, but there's always like a big what do you call those big, like, travel trunk or something that's 60 years old. You open it up and it's like a little, you're looking for gold coins, you're looking for treasure. I actually have a friend that literally found gold coins in a house, and then he went back, re-hid them, and then let his kid come and find them again, which was like super cool. But yeah.
Well, cool. So you're a problem solver, right? And if someone out there has one of these problems, like you said, inherited property, foreclosure, and they say, I've got this mess and I want to turn it into money and I want Shaun's help, then they need to reach out and contact you and have this conversation and just see what you can do because you love this stuff, right? You eat, breathe, and sleep real estate. You do this all day, every day. And so if someone out there, if their real estate is not their strength, then they just need to go in the same way you wouldn't be your own attorney or you wouldn't be your own accountant. Like just get someone who's
No.
done this for years who can just say, hey, I know you're stressed out. Let me take this off your hands. Let me solve this problem for you. Let me get you this outcome, which is a bunch of money in your pocket in exchange for this maybe distressed property or just something you don't want. And so how can someone reach out to you here, Shaun? What's your contact information? What's the next step?
Yeah, I mean, just real quick, going back to being your own attorney or accountant. Oh my gosh, like I get hives if when I have to open up QuickBooks. I have to do it, but I hate it. Ah. Anyway, yeah, just stick to your lane. Stick to your lane.
Yes.
Reaching out to me, I mean, the best would be going to our website. We have a couple, but I'll tell you, one is webuyhousesindenver.org, spelt like it sounds, pretty straightforward because we buy houses in Denver. You could probably find me on Facebook. I mean, if you Google my name, Shaun Martin, real estate investor, I do know I come up a number of times. Certainly if you put Denver. But yeah, I would say a Google search is probably the easiest if you're watching this right now. Hopefully, maybe you could put my contact details below. I'd be happy to put an email and the website down there. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to do it.
And we will
Be
do
happy
that.
to talk to anybody too. I mean, I said I don't want to go out for a cup of coffee, but if someone calls me up, wants to talk real estate, if it's even if you're new at it, I'm happy to chat. I'll probably give you some homework, and if you do that homework and come back, and if you've completed it, I'd talk to you more. And I'm not saying homework like go find me a deal. I'm like, well, go learn about this. Come back and tell me what you learned, because that's a way for me to learn too. So.
Yeah, and there's never enough learning that you can do in your lifetime, and they call that setting boundaries, right? You're saying that it's okay to call and have a quick chat, and don't be discouraged. Just you can't talk for 2 hours. It's a quick chat. You give them homework. They come back and then maybe make some progress on some of these deals. So you said we buy houses in Denver.org. And even more importantly, do that Google search, that SEO search. That's Shaun Martin. That's SHAUN, last name Martin. And before we sign off here, Shaun, it's time to put you on the spot a little bit, if that's okay, if that makes you a little bit nervous. And I'd like to ask my guest about a quote or lesson that has really helped them out. And it can be any quote or lesson. So what comes to mind here in our conversation as far as just a quote or lesson that you think can help out one of these people that you're talking to soon?
Um, I mean, and this actually goes back to kind of mental health, and I mean, I had a hell of a time of 5, 6 years ago, but I don't know who said it, but it's along the lines of 9 out of 10 things I worried about never happened. And the point being, like on any given day, I don't know if you're the same, Robert, but
I am.
like the sky is falling. Like in real estate, it's like, oh my gosh, there's going to be a storm or the sewer line's going to collapse. And I used to stay up all night thinking about these big ticket items that may come out of my pocket. And I mean, I'd say 999 times out of 100, none of those worries ever happened. And then for me too, like that built into kind of don't take myself so seriously. And don't be so harsh on yourself, which I mean, that's me saying that to me. Be kind to yourself. I mean, I am a hard worker. I'm very self-motivated, but I beat up on myself a lot. So if you're like that, and if you're going into real estate, if you're an entrepreneur, self-employed, you probably are that type of personality. So just be good to yourself and try not to worry about things you can't control. And if you're worrying about something you might be able to control, write it down, think about it, think it through, and that will really help you.
I love that. That's wonderful advice. Only worry about what you can control. That way you can better focus on what you can control. So we've been speaking with Shaun Martin from WeBuyHousesInDenver.com. Wonderful speaking to you, friend.
Yeah, you too, Robert. Really appreciate your time. Cheers.